it was this morning, I heard a story about what's the role of government in healthcare, and particularly what's the role of the FDA in preventing E. coli outbreaks. And of course, we have the new strain of E. coli in Europe. And the national show that I was listening to suggested that there's a role for government here, and it was to protect the citizenry against bacteria like new strains of E. coli. And then they went on to tell how the first E. coli outbreak was handled, and it was Jack in the Box that came up with a test, the test for E. coli. And the thought occurred to me, the assumption is that only government could do it. That was the focus of the show. But then Jack in the Box created the testing methods. Is that the kind of government cooperation you're talking about, or collaboration?
You know, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which is again for a lot of manufacturing small businesses, a big problem. Under George W. Bush, I remember because we did this in my district, they had a program, a STAR program, where if you had no accidents, they didn't bother you because you'd achieved their goal. I mean, whereas, as you know, OSHA specializes in coming in to find some Mickey Mouse thing like, you know, your fire extinguisher is 3 inches off where it should be, and that's a $500 fine or some nonsense. By the way, that's a true story that Nancy Johnson told me about a nursing home in Connecticut. You know, there was a 3-inch difference, so they get a $500 fine, and you're thinking, are you guys nuts? Okay, so start with the idea, if you incentivize, if you say, for example, if you run 100% safe food program, and there are no problems with it, and you're transparent, so we're able, because electronically, we can track all this. I used to work with the Center for Disease Control in developing these kind of ideas. And so you could track this with very high levels of accuracy. We're not going to bother you. And we're going to focus government resources only on places that are problems. That's a very different kind of outcome. And by the way, you can incentivize people for inventing things. You can say, you know, the person who invents the new test for the new E. coli strain, you know, you get to license it everywhere in the country, and the government will encourage, you know, everybody who produces food to use your new test. That's, people don't realize it. The United States, I believe, is the only country in history that put a patent office in the Constitution. And the reason was the founding fathers, this is way before computers, writing with quill pens, had this instinct that encouraging the creation of knowledge was the key to a better future. And that's why last night, the one question when somebody raised this comment about, can you really expect rapid economic growth when we're a developed country? It was fundamentally wrong. We're not a developed country. It's not like we're now old in this, you know, we're at the beginning of scientific revolutions that are going to create generations of new opportunities and generations of new industries and generations of new possibilities. We're going to see America as a country at the edge of takeoff, not a country at the edge of a plateau. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to make a comment on EGS.
I'm sorry, on what?
The environmental services.
Oh, well, you're talking about that must be the state level.
Well, the national level.
The Environmental Protection Agency?
Yeah.
Yeah. My comment is, and I'm going to give a speech on this probably in July, I think we should replace the Environmental Protection Agency with a brand new Environmental Solutions Agency. And the Environmental Solutions Agency should operate off some very key principles. I believe deeply in the environment. I taught environmental studies. I'm not in any way anti-environment. But the current bureaucracy has grown into an anti-business, anti-local control, fairly radical ideology, authoritarian system that basically says Washington knows best, and no matter how stupid this is, we're doing it because we're in charge. And you go around to small towns everywhere in America, and you'll find that EPA has adopted rules that are going to bankrupt these small towns. And they just don't seem to care. You go out and talk to farmers now. Farmers will tell you EPA is a bigger problem than anything. EPA causes them more pain than the U.S. Department of Agriculture causes them happiness. So you now have, farmers will tell you that the EPA rules are just utterly ridiculous. They now want milk treated as a dangerous commodity. And so if milk falls on the ground now, you should treat it as though it's gasoline. This is not a joke. These are people sitting in offices in Washington with radical left-wing ideologies that essentially say, if you aren't riding your bicycle to work, you're somehow not a patriot. So what can I do to make sure you can't afford to do anything to ride a bicycle? And their whole attitude, we have this great opportunity to have an enormous increase in natural gas, so they're trying to find a way to close down the industry. I would also include the Fish and Wildlife Service, which I would move into an Environmental Solutions Agency. The Fish and Wildlife Service is now talking about closing down the largest on-land oil and gas region in the United States over a desert lizard, which may or may not be endangered. But if you look at the number of square miles they want to close down, it can't possibly be endangered. I mean, you know, if it's, and I don't know the total number of miles, so I don't want to make up a number, because our friends in the Navy look up nuts as well. Figure out, you know, so I'm hoping they'll look it up and tell us later. But it is a very large part of West Texas. Now, if the lizard's in that whole area, how can it be endangered? If it's not in that whole area, why would you close the whole area down in order, you know, because there's an area where it's endangered? This is the kind of stuff you get into. There's a small town that is overwhelmingly Hispanic that has 43% unemployment in the Sacramento River Basin over a very small fish. Now, I'm for the very small fish, and maybe we can figure out a way to have a fishery, to grow lots of them. But the idea you're going to have 43% unemployment in a town because some Washington bureaucrat has decided that the fish matters more than you do is the kind of stuff where we live. An environmental solutions agency would start from a totally new level. How do we work together to maximize a healthy environment while also having a healthy economy? And how do we work together to have communities and states have a creative, positive role?